Welcome back to the Escape Collective Tour Daily, everybody. I'm Kaylee Fretz. It is just after stage
9.
I was quizzing you.
I said it right earlier and then
definitely not that I didn't know.
Stage 9.
Yeah. I'm here with Johnny Long. How are you, Johnny?
I'm great. Today was a good day.
It was a good day. You said this on the drive to Clermont-Ferrand, where we are right now, that if all tour days could be like that, you'd be a pretty happy man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm usually pretty happy, but today was
exceptional.
I was very happy, yeah.
And Ian Treloar, your hair is tall today.
The thing that we've done is we've eaten some Vietnamese, and it had a bit of kick to it, which means that the humidity grows up in my hair, and then it just gets a little bit more bouffant, and it's also hot anyway.
It is hot.
You were perspiring out of your sideburns, I noticed. I didn't want to say anything.
Thank you. I normally perspire all over the face, so if I've just kept it to the sideburns, then I've pulled the wool over your eyes.
I've just remembered, this is before we introduce anything, that Sam Welsford shaves his arms to be more aero. I heard that in the mix the other day, and I completely forgotten about it until right that moment. This is 4 days old knowledge and news.
Interesting. I
don't know what to say to that.
I've heard of that. I've heard of people doing that. But always for the same reason as the legs, which usually has something to do with like massages and crashes and things, which is, I mean, it's kind of nonsense. It's really like you just join the club, right? Shave your legs, join the club. That's kind of the
shave your arms,
thing.
also join the club.
Shave your arms, join a different club, a new and interesting club with mostly just Sam Welsford in it. Yeah. Well, it was a spectacular day today. Johnny, we sent you on a small train, to the top of the Puy de Dôme, which is a climb that had not been used since 1988. In fact, about 3 weeks after I was born is the last time that this very large climb kind of stuck up in the middle of the Massif Central, which is an old volcano. Last time this climb was used, and in that instance, it was a spectacular day. And previous to that, I think it was 50. I don't have it in front of me now. I think it was 56. Anquetil Poulador. We've talked about this in some of the previews. Anquetil Poulador had a pretty epic battle on the slopes of the Puy de Dôme, including a quite famous photo of the two of them kind of like elbowing each other. And L'Equipe this morning actually kind of recreated that photo in a Photoshop style that I think they stole straight from Spin Cycle, to be perfectly honest.
No, that was a professional on that one. That was a professional. They spent the extra time to zoom in and rub out any of the adjoining lines. That was proper.
I think crucially, none of them were in a washing
dryer,
machine or a dryer, so
they've still got a way to go.
Amateur hour from L'Equipe.
Our winner at the top of the mountain, none other than Canadian Mike Woods. I would go as far as to say friend of the podcast. I like Mike a lot. I've had a couple good chats with him. I know that he consumes some of our media. In fact, I chatted with him yesterday, and I'm going to write up a little bit on Mike after we're done with this podcast. But it was a phenomenal day for him. It was one of those races today where we got 2 races in one, which was fun. So let's start with the front race, the actual race for the stage win. And then, of course, we're going to get into the Pogačar versus Vingegaard battle, which did end up with some time gains and time losses. We will get into that in a little bit. But first and foremost, the Mike Woods breakaway. Run me through it.
There was a big breakaway group that got away pretty early, and there wasn't really any interest from the peloton in chasing them. Nobody particularly dangerous on the GC. We had people, I think the closest on GC was about 35 minutes behind, so not really a big threat to any of the big guys, which was good because they got about 15 minutes out in front. Meanwhile, in that front group, there was all sorts of drama going on. There were mechanical issues that were forcing people off their bikes. Oh, Kaylee's taking a little bit of a picture, and I'm bad at multitasking. And from that group, Matteo Jorgensen from Movistar decided to animate things a little bit. He got away with about 40k to go and struck off on his own.
48.
48?
Yep.
That is 8 more than I just said.
Correcting the record.
In pursuit, there were the likes of 2 Uno X riders. There was, this is testing my memory,
Nielsen Paulus.
He was there. There was
Lutsenko.
Matthew Bergadou.
He was there.
Matthew Bergadou. Everybody now. So that was good. Good to see him. Haven't seen a lot of him this race. So
Alexei Lutsenko was in there.
Alexei Lutsenko. Gorka Izagir.
Yep.
Clement Bertet from the AG2R Citroën squad. He was in there.
And now we're starting Mike Woods. Mike Woods was in there.
Mike Woods was in there.
He was probably quite an important one that we should have mentioned
He was
earlier.
important.
So they were all fracturing across the road trying to catch up to Matteo Jorgensen, who was doing a very big effort. He got to the base of the Puy de Dôme, not Puy Dôme, as has been repeatedly referred to by Sean Kelly on the commentary that we were watching. That was driving us absolutely spare. Puy de Dôme, which is a hard climb, and it's also a really interesting climb because we drove up it today most of the way until they said no. It's quite steep, but it doesn't really mess around too much. It just sort of ramps up out of Clermont-Ferrand, right on the outskirts of the city, and then it's just this big bloody mountain.
And you just loop around it Alpe d'Huez style.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Stop saying that, man. It really bums me out. Really bums me out.
I had a friend text me today and ask if that's what Alpe d'Huez was based off of, and I don't think it was, but they are strikingly similar.
It was actually based on Alpe d'Huez.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
Puy de Dôme was. Yeah, that's how they...
That's how they came up with it.
Yeah, 11,000 years ago. They were like, in 11,000 years, there's going to be this thing called Zwift.
Let's just get ahead of the
Yeah.
curve.
Well, and nobody was allowed up there. So, like, Mike Woods talked about this in his little post-race interview of sort of going from not being able to hear himself think, because, like, where we were standing, sort of below the barriers, and because they were barriers, they weren't just fences, people bang on them, and it's incredibly loud.
Yeah.
Like, all the way up. And then all of a sudden, just like a light switch went out, silence. Right, just him and a motorbike and a couple cars.
And a gendarme every 20 meters.
A gendarme every 20 meters. We were going to try to walk up, to sneak our way up there, and we realized that even if we walked through the woods, at some point we were going to come out on a road and there was going to be a gendarme within 50 feet of us. So
we would have been in quite a lot of trouble. So
Yes.
instead, we just had a nice chat to some friends that we made on the roadside. Shout out to Harry and Leighton, New Zealand and Australian. Friends of the pod.
Friends of the pod. Harry, lucky boy, got a special sticker from us. Special top secret sticker. I think it has your face on it, Johnny.
Top secret stickers.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's top secret stash of stickers that I brought over from Australia.
So if you come find us here at this Tour de France, you too may end up with a super special top secret Johnny or Ian's face sticker. You never know. Anyway, it's great to see Harry. We're hanging out for a while up there because we had hours and hours and hours. We got to the base of the Puy de Dôme before the race even started, and then had to sit there for 5 hours. Regardless, this isn't about us. Let's talk about the actual bike race. So we end up with this group of 16 riders. They have a gap of 15, 16 minutes. Peloton doesn't care at all, basically. As we head into some of the final climbs, there were a series of difficult climbs today. A couple Cat 4s early, then a Cat 3, and then this drop into Clermont-Ferrand, and then up to Puy de Dôme. On that Cat 3, it started to split up, and we started to see a lot of attacks going off. Matteo Jorgensen was already off the front at this point, and then we end up with this kind of mano-a-mano battle on the way up Puy de Dôme. I think Jorgensen had about a minute at 5K to go, and it looked like he might be able to hang on, and then he hit the Flamme Rouge, 1K to go, and kind of just fell apart. It was brutal to watch.
Yeah.
It was really brutal to watch because he did an amazing, amazing ride today. And if you handed out Tour stage wins off of who deserves them, he certainly deserved it, right?
Yeah,
it was an incredible ride. But equally, Mike Woods played it really well. He said afterward that he didn't actually think he played it that well. He let the gap kind of get a little bit too big, but the end of that climb, the really steep bit of that climb, suited him really well, and he was able to claw all that time back and cross the finish line alone.
The thing about that climb is, even though we're talking about the last kilometre of the race, they were going at 8 kilometres an hour, so it went quite a long time. And that also kind of added to the drama of it and how agonising it was with the Matteo Jorgensen catch, because you could see it coming and it just had this inevitable feeling about it.
Yep.
And then, there it was. and then he's dropping off the back, and then
He got caught and ended up in
450 to go, I think.
Yeah, but he ended up what, 5th, 6th,
Yeah.
4th.
He got pipped for the final podium position right on the line and just sort of sunk his head.
Brutal.
So it was a really strong ride from him, and would have been a very deserving one of a win, but that wasn't how it turned out.
He got a lot of hugs from his team afterwards. You could see them in the distance. And then he looked in good spirits when he bumped into Nielsen when they were at the top, because there's a bit of a delay for them going down, and he didn't seem that upset by it at that point. I think, I guess in that one, as you say, that one was an exercise contest.
Yep.
And if you lose the exercise contest, then there's not really that much to be upset about.
Yeah, it's not like he made an error. I think he did absolutely everything he possibly could today. He had to hit the base of that climb with a gap. He did so with an incredible ride. He just couldn't hang on, and that's the way bike racing goes sometimes. I mean, he's an incredible talent. Gen C wrote a great piece for us. I think we just put it back on the homepage, actually. It popped up right before the Tour de France, but we've just stuck it back on the homepage. Go check that out. It's a great deep dive into who Jorgensen is as a person, as an athlete. It's a great piece, so go check that out. Kudos to Mike Woods.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Canada. You've now won stages 2 years in a row for the first time since I think Bauer won his stage way back in the day. So, yeah, it's been a great 2 years for Canadian cycling. Chatted with Guillaume Bovin after the race, who's the only Canadian in this race who hasn't won a stage yet. So better get on it, Guillaume. He said he's next.
The best moment after Mike Woods won the stage that I saw was when he was preparing to go on French television to do a little interview. He was frantically shouting at his press officer for his attention because he needed someone to check if he had any food in his teeth, because he was terrified of going on French TV and then there being a bit of Haribo gummy bear stuck between his front teeth and getting memed to death, I guess.
On the opposite side of that coin, shout out to our friend and colleague Gregor Brown, because he and I were talking with Guillaume Bovin together. Bovin had just finished speaking with some French TV thing. No, it wasn't TV, some French something in French, who had not informed him that he had a giant booger hanging out of his nose. Kudos to Gregor Brown before switching over to interview him for Flow Bikes, because Gregor's for Flow Bikes, informed Guillaume Bovin that he had a booger hanging out of his nose.
How did he do it?
He just said, "You got something," and did a little flick.
That's classy.
Yeah, that's classy.
What would have been more classy is if he'd informed him before the other interview.
Was that on TV as well?
It happened too fast. We both showed up kind of as that interview was happening. So
I think he could have.
You just stand behind the interviewer and just flick your nose.
Yeah, just really distract him from the answers to the questions that he's trying to give. Just make him really self-conscious in the moment of his teammates' triumph.
Was it the same French media that were very unforgiving with letting us into the right traffic queue this morning?
No, different French media.
Okay, that's fine.
Different French media. Yeah. That was rude, because I sent them audio and then they turned around and wouldn't let us into the line of cars. Rude. These are us problems, not.
Yeah, this is just race analyst plus airing some of our grievances, our minor grievances.
So,
Pogacar and Vingegaard.
This is the other major talking point from today. We knew it would be a bit of a, like I said, a kind of a day of two races. The race behind this GC race. A couple things stood out to me. One, we're gonna kick off here. Pitters.
He did a right.
Thomas
today,
Pidcock had a heck of a ride today, and was over chatting with directors over there, and it sounds like they think he can ride to a top 5 in this Tour de France, which is
Where's
looking increasingly likely.
Let me have a look. Quickly scroll. He is currently 7th, moved up 2 places today. He's 5 minutes 26 down on Vingegaard. Simon Yates and Adam Yates are both under a minute ahead of him.
Is he the leader of the Ineos classification?
No, Carlos Rodriguez is in 4th, 4 minutes and 22, just ahead of Adam Yates. Jai Hindley still has about 1 minute 40 on them.
Options up their sleeve.
There's definitely going to be someone who is even more third when we get into the final week.
The most third? I mean, nowhere near as third as Geraint Thomas was last year, though.
I don't know. There's already the gap between Vingegaard and Pogacar to third is already 2.5 minutes.
Today, Jai
Hindley. What is it, third to
became
fourth? No, because Jai Hindley is losing.
Back.
He is less
falling
third.
back.
Yes, that's what I mean. Someone's going to be more third than Geraint was in terms of... because you're talking about the gap from third to
both
fourth.
directions.
Ah, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, third works both ways.
So at the moment, we just have a third, whereas for anybody who doesn't know what on earth we're talking about, last year, Geraint Thomas, the gap between him and second was enormous, and the gap between him and fourth was enormous. And so basically he was extremely third. Like he would have had, for example, in the Unchained thing where they like make pretend that he's battling with David Gaudu for third. No. There was none of that happened. It was like a 4-minute gap between the two of them.
Well, Gaudu needed a toe to the line from Pinot today, so that's how his tour's going.
Was Gaudu a go don't?
He was his legs were a good don't today. It's pretty tough. I don't want to see him break this stage down on Twitch after the race. I think it might be brief.
Yeah, bad news for the French teams in general because Ben O'Connor is having a real rough go of it.
Yeah.
David Gaudu having a real rough go of it. Yeah, just not a good tour for the French.
Their big guy.
Victor
I mean,
Lafay,
Gaudu is still 8th, 6 minutes down, so he's on for a top 10, but it's not really what he was.
Not hoping.
Maybe
for.
he'll come good.
Yeah, you never know. Anyway, Pogačar and Vingegaard. Big question here. We're at the end of the first week, a really difficult first week, a really dynamic first week, a first week that has looked like no other first week of the Tour de France that I have ever covered, and I don't think like anyone I've ever watched. And I was speaking with some of my more experienced colleagues.
That's a nice way of putting it.
And
Elderly?
they agree.
Were you just calling them elderly?
No, I was calling them more experienced.
Same thing.
Same thing.
They agreed that they hadn't seen a first week of the tour like this in their memory either. So a pretty phenomenal one. We now reach the end of it. Tomorrow is our rest day in Clermont-Ferrand. We are going to have a special members-only podcast, and we'll talk more about it at the end of the show, but you have to be a member to get it, basically. We're going to the rest day. The last two battles between Vingegaard and Pogačar were victory for Pogačar. The bigger one, right before that, was a much more sizable victory for Vingegaard. So where do we stand? What do we think going into this first rest day? Who has the upper hand?
I think Pogačar has a psychological advantage based on the last couple of days. And I think the way that it happened today felt probably pretty difficult for Vingegaard because he just slowly disappeared up the road and there was nothing he could do to reel him back in. And he just had to watch for a few minutes whilst somebody was very slightly faster than him up a very slow climb. No corners, no way that he was out of his sight. It was just like, there he goes. Okay.
I mean, we were sitting there watching the broadcast, like just looking at marks on the road and counting.
Yeah, same.
And going like, okay, it's 2 seconds. Okay, it's 3 seconds. Okay, it's 6 seconds. And then it was 8 by the top. No bonus seconds, luckily for Vingegaard.
Yeah.
All those got snatched up, which is probably part of the reason why they wanted that break to go and be so big. No more bonus seconds, but still, 8 seconds is not nothing. What's the GC gap now?
17 seconds.
17 seconds between two of them with
That's
a
pretty
heck of a lot of bike racing that's already
pretty
happened.
good.
That's pretty damn good.
Sebastian Kuss after the finish today. Giuseppe Kuss, sorry, I keep getting that wrong.
Is it Giuseppe or Giuseppe?
It can be whatever you want
Depends
it
if
to
he's
be.
in Italy or not, I think.
He was saying that they were actually quite comfortable with that gap, which sounded a little bit manufactured as a response. But he was like, yeah, this is good. We like this. He's got a gap, and he's keeping that gap, and there's a long way to go, and he'll keep keeping that gap, was the word out of...
He was not keeping that gap today.
No,
he
I know,
has
but
8
he's
seconds less gap
with
than
the gap.
happened
He
before.
said that.
I'll need to go back and listen to the transcript. Maybe I'm putting words into Giuseppe's mouth, but...
It's like putting your hand in a mouse trap and being like, bit a slight tingle. Big cope from Jumbo-Visma.
We talked a lot about mind games in the sort of beginning and the lead up to this race, in the first couple days of this race, and we were basically saying that Pogačar saying that he was not good was part of the mind games. It put all the pressure on Vingegaard before the race started. Does it now feel like it's kind of flipped in the other direction, and Pogačar's now there's mind games in the other direction that are like, I can take 8 seconds out of you on a regular basis, and I'm going to keep doing it? Is that mind games or leg games at that point?
I think Vingegaard he's seemed calm on top of the mountain, like even though he'd been bested, but like there's so much racing to go, and he knows that he's cracked Pogačar once. He knows there's a possibility of doing it again. As long as he keeps him stays in the race till the third week, then I think he'll be confident. Yeah. I think the biggest, in terms of the psychological battle, I think the biggest thing is that Jumbo-Visma don't have Primož Roglič here. because that is the biggest
Yep.
psychological factor for Pogačar, because it's a rider he looks up to, who there's complicated relationships there in terms of Slovenian cycling, how Slovenia views those riders. And so even if Roglic wasn't on the form where he'd let him up the road, or could be able to get up the road, having him there as that presence who maybe does do attacks would be, and was last year, the buffer to Pogačar. So I think that's the biggest loss in terms of that mentally, Jumbo-Visma all looking at Pogačar being like, this guy can outclimb our guy. At the moment in the race it could switch, but there's none of that the other way around. It's like, oh well, Sepp Kuss, we know that he's, he'll peel off at some point. Wout van Aert's not necessarily showing the form as we think he maybe tunes himself up for Glasgow, which is his real aim.
Came in a bit soft, perhaps.
Yeah.
I think where I come down on this question about about where the two of them have the upper hand is that I think Pogačar individually has the upper hand over Vingegaard, but Jumbo-Visma has the upper hand over UAE Team Emirates. So I think it's going to be really interesting over the next couple of weeks how that actually shakes out, because it's not a totally even match. It's just how those mismatches will balance out.
Also, like Pogačar coming in off an injury, how's he going to fare the longer the race goes on? That's a big question that we're kind of forgetting at the minute, because he's maybe nicked a few seconds off Vingegaard here and there, but like maybe one day he just doesn't have it. I think that's one of the great things we've seen, is that these guys are yo-yoing from day to day in terms of one day one guy has a great day, one day another guy does, and then
feels more human.
Happening.
Feels more human for sure.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. In a good way. I mean, one of the interesting things. So I just randomly caught Mike Woods as he was sort of rolling through the kind of chaos at the buses yesterday. I think we talked about this a bit in the pod, but like all the fans can get in where the buses are at the finish, which is great if you're a fan and you want to get literally like touch the riders that you're a fan of. It's less great if you're a rider or a person in the press trying to run around and do work.
I'm physically moving out of the way and I'm waiting to get like physically told off by a bigger lad who's a fan. Yeah. But for now I'm just pushing. Yeah,
it's not a great scene. Like it's frankly it's kind of dangerous. It's like it's not great. Anyway, so Mike Woods comes through and I just asked him if I could do like a walk and talk, and I kind of like pushed people out of the way for him as we were making our way through this throng and chatted with him while we were doing that. So I had a nice sort of like minute chat with Mike, and one of the things that he said that was really interesting to me is that so he had a bad day on the Tourmalet. Tourmalet basically ended any sort of vague GC hopes that he had, because he fell away in the Tourmalet, and if you will recall, that was the second to last climb. That was not the last climb. So he lost a fair amount of time on that day. And he said it was because, let's just play the audio. Why am I paraphrasing? Here we go.
Highs and lows. I had a good start, and then really was disappointed with the second 2-day stint in the mountains. I thought I'd be a lot better, but I think I just underfueled during the easy days. It's been a tour of extremes. I've never done a Grand Tour with this level of extreme, super hard in the first 2 days, then insanely easy, and then super hard again. And I think that's why I made the mistake of underfueling on those easy days. I just didn't fuel enough, and it cost me when we were going over the Tourmalet.
So that's a really interesting bit of analysis, I think, from Woods, and maybe it points to some of the other difficulties that potentially lie ahead, or traps that potentially lie ahead for Vingegaard and Pogačar, which is that fueling these days is a massive, massive deal. It always has been a massive deal, but it is a much more scientific process than it used to be. These riders are taking in like 50% more carbohydrates per hour than they were even just a couple years ago, and actually like I was talking to a nutritionist last winter who was saying that he thinks it's a big part of the reason that they've trained their bodies to take in this much like glycogen, basically, carbohydrate. He thinks it's a big part of the reason why the races are so fast these days is that they're so much energy. They have so much energy because they've trained their bodies to actually like intake and use it. Because the thing before was that it was thought that most human beings just couldn't even handle that much.
But they pushed through.
But they've figured out how to push through that. So anyway, I found that really interesting, and that Mike Woods was saying that, the easy day, hard day thing, the easy day, he just didn't eat enough, and it ended his GC hopes in the Tourmalet, and it was a good reminder of how on the edge these guys are all the time, right? Like they are living on the margins, they are riding on the margins. If they lose a couple percent, that's all it takes. And if you think back to like the Granon last year, you know, Tadej Pogačar with a bit of a hunger knock loses a couple minutes to Vingegaard.
Yeah.
Like maybe Mike Woods with a hunger knock doesn't get over the Tourmalet. Pogačar still gets over the Tourmalet, right? Because he's Tadej Pogačar, but he doesn't perform as well as he should in that final climb, and that's all it would take. So it's a good little reminder and sort of a tangible reminder of how little tiny things 2 days beforehand can ruin your bike race.
It's been a great first week, and I imagine the next 2 weeks I've been kind of preparing for it to not be as exciting, just for my own sort of, not sanity, but just, in case
you don't want to get your hopes up.
Disappointment. Yeah, you don't want to get your hopes up. But it has been fantastic, and the route is planned perfectly. At the top today, I managed to speak to Christian Prudhomme, ask him a couple of questions. I had to ask him in French, which I could ask. I have no idea what he responded, so I will find a way to translate it. But I asked him basically whether this is like the most exciting tour route that he's ever seen, and like what he thinks of it, and then also when we're gonna see the Puy de Dôme again. So you're gonna have to go to the site because
we need to translate.
There's no
first.
point playing the audio because I imagine, like me, a lot of people won't understand what he's saying.
Well, before we jump over to José Been and the Giro, Johnny, you were on the top of Puy de Dôme today. You have done something that no cycling journalist has done since 1988. 1, was it cool? 2, what did you see? What was it like?
It was cool. I think because it hasn't been up there since 1988, it felt worthwhile getting the funicular up and sort of embracing the potential chaos of not being able to get down a mountain. Before I get into it, I think first I'll throw to a little recording I did up there where I was joined by photographer and
extremely tall man, a man from my personal favourite Australian city, Perth, Zach Williams, the photographer, where I gave my view of what we were experiencing, and he did as well from his point of view as a photographer. Let's listen in.
Right, I've made it to the top of the Puy de Dôme. It's a quiet atmosphere. There's no fans obviously allowed in the final 4 kilometres. Only one reporter per publication was allowed up. It's a bunch of photographers and TV people and guests. Pogačar's family are here as well. So it's a refined guest list that I've somehow snuck my way into. But also on that refined guest list is Perth's second favourite son, Zach Williams, who joins me at the top. Zach, would you also like to set the scene for our privileged position at the finish of the Tour Stage 9?
I mean, yeah, I feel like if I got an invite up to here, I might get an invite to some, more exciting after parties after the Champs-Élysées, perhaps, now that I've sort of been seen up here. But I mean, it's quite barren up here. It's very volcanic, not much like Etna because there's grass, but it feels like a volcano. There's a lovely sort of little cafeteria where I paid 28 euros for an awful lasagna / ratatouille meal, which was filled a hole but wasn't very enjoyable. There's lots of gendarmes around here on power trips because the rules for photographers are you're not allowed to stand on the road at all. So even though there's a big curb a little bit further down, we were standing behind. One very charming gendarme wouldn't let us stand there. So we're sort of penned in at the top here, waiting for some pain faces. But I honestly don't really like stages like this, just logistically speaking as a photographer, because you only have the option to come to one place, so we came up on the train and we stood up here for 4 hours waiting for them. It's now 5:30 and I've not taken a single picture today, so it feels weird. But yeah, it's a weird sort of atmosphere. It doesn't feel like the Tour de France at all.
That's true. There's more policemen, more compulsors. No, there's more policemen than fans maybe on the mountain today. A sideways question, just to round off this segment. Since you spoke briefly about photographs and the ones you're going to take today, who's your favourite rider to photograph at the Tour?
Well, if I don't say Jai, I might not get let back into Perth. But aside from Jai, because that's very biased, objectively speaking, I'd say Pog, because he looks phenomenal on a bike and he always photographs well, like whether he's just like cruising along or whether he's going full gas. Like, he's just beautiful on the bike. Like, I've not been able to take a bad picture of him, and I've tried pretty hard. So yeah, Pog for sure.
Perfect. And I mean, maybe today he'll be one of the first of the GC group over that lip first. So looking forward to seeing his pain face from your camera later. Yeah, it was a bit of a weird one, even when we recorded that with about 10 kilometres to go. And when the riders came, it was like just a lot of sort of polite applause rather than raucous crowds, because there weren't that many people. Like you could easily stand at any barrier. Across the road from me was Tadej Pogacar's family, who I was kind of watching quite intently just to see their reactions to things, to kind of get a gauge on whatever. I spoke to Pogacar's mum briefly afterwards for a little interview, which will also be on the site. But yeah, they were doing most of the applause. They applauded Jonas Vingegaard, I checked. They did applaud the UAE Team Emirates riders more than others, but they applauded everyone who came past, and the extra Slovenians who were in the race. It was a bit eerie. It felt like a tour stage for the TV and for history, rather than for the fans and the pomp of the tour, which I think is fine, because that's how the tour is nowadays.
Yep.
But yeah, it was too easy to move around. There wasn't the chaos. Like, you could just go up to Christian Prudhomme, or you could spot all the members of family just standing around. Like, Jonas Vingegaard was warming down with his wife and kids standing there, and everyone was just sort of watching them. It felt like just an amateur race. It felt like you were at like a Spanish like one dayer, like in February. It was odd, but I felt very privileged to be up there. It was cool seeing the riders all come across the line. I'm trying to think of any other fun moments. I wrote them all down, but they're evading me at the minute.
You'll have to go read escapecollective.com for your
I've
full...
done I think when you listen to this, I'll be in the process of doing a little feature on the day out.
Yep.
Pog's family seemed very normal and nice. His dad had a big banner which says something like "Never quit" or something, or "No matter how hard it is, never quit."
That's a good banner.
Yeah.
And he didn't. He took 8 seconds back.
Quit. They were quite muted, but they also knew exactly when to go over and look at the TV.
Yeah.
So like, because the TV coverage was focusing more on the breakaway riders, but then they kind of, as soon as it switched to GC, I think they heard in the commentary, and they were there just like sort of watching. They all forgot sunglasses, so they were all watching with their hand like covering their eyes because the screen was right there. But
you said his mother's a French teacher?
Yeah, his mother's a French teacher, which is why Pogacar can pronounce croissant so good.
Which has been a little viral moment that's been going around on the internet. Does he speak good French then?
I think he must speak okay French.
Yeah.
Yeah, she spoke English. Tadej Pogacar's sister was there as well, who I heard her speaking English a bit. There's also the UAE Team Emirates president. He doused Pogacar with water as he came across the line. Like he apparently loves like photos and the camera and like getting involved in it, but he doesn't do interviews. He doesn't often come to races, but he comes to the tour sometimes apparently. So yeah, it was a very exclusive club. Pogacar's mum said to me that it was actually very difficult for her to get accreditation to get up to the top. So if Pogacar's mum is struggling to get up there,
I mean, we only got one.
We only got
one.
Which
is why you went up alone. Otherwise, we would have all gone up. And we were going to try to just sneak onto the train, but that didn't work either.
The funicular, it was cool. We got great views of like the valley below. I was reading about the Puy de Dôme on the way up, and they have a running race up it every year. And the guy who's won 2 or 3 years in a row is called something like Daniel Fat, which is great.
Because he probably isn't.
I doubt it. I doubt it.
We would be remiss to not get into the Mile Sabla before. I should say there's no Christoph Corner tonight. I think we've gone a bit long for Christoph Corner, to be honest.
I'll save the Christoph Corner.
There'll be less exciting days than today for Christoph Corner.
Yep. Let's get into the Mile Sabla. So it is 2-2.
It is.
And I believe it is Ian's turn to guess first.
It is.
Yeah.
So the new Mile Sabla, new rider, 52nd place. They dropped 5 places today, and they currently hold a time of 1 hour, 0 minutes, and 29 seconds.
Tight one.
Tight one. What's even more complicated is that I know this rider's name, obviously, nationality, and team. If you ask me a fun or serious fact, I might struggle.
So you're saying this might go back and forth a couple times?
You know what? There are 100 and however many riders in the tour, so it's impossible to know all of them.
And many of them don't have any fun facts.
Many don't have any fun facts, at least that we know of. And if you guys manage to get this rider, I will be very impressed. So Ian, we'll start you off. Would you like Nationality or team?
Nationality, please.
French.
Oh.
Yeah.
No.
Just have a guess. You might as well just have a guess of a French rider.
Don't know if he's in the race, but the name that springs to mind, Alexis Goujat.
Great name. I'm not sure if he's in the race, but he's definitely not the Maya Sabler. Would you like the team?
Yep.
Arkea Samsic.
Oh, no, this doesn't help.
No cheating, Ian. Put your phone down.
I am trying to think of a rider on Arkea.
There's one. There's the King of France.
Who is on Arkea?
I do have
That is
to.
French.
I do have to speed you up a bit, just because this is a audio product. So
Oh,
if we
yeah,
say
yeah.
nothing, then it's not as exciting.
Can I? I don't think we're ever going to get this.
Well, okay, Ian. Would you like the first, the letter of his first name
Yes.
or the letter of his last name? Which one?
First,
M.
Maxime Bouet.
No, good guess though. I don't know
That
if he's
is
in the
a
race.
I don't know
Solid.
if he's on Arkea Samsic either.
Okay, his initials, Kaylee, are ML.
Lada New or whatever his name is.
No, good. That's a cracker of a guess though. Should we call it? Should we call it a no score today? Shall I tell you who it is?
Yeah.
Mathis Louvel.
Never heard of
That
him.
is a stranger to me.
Well, when I saw his name, I was like, oh, that must be
Actually,
the
that's-
fella with the beard, but it's not.
No,
He
that's
looks
not
very
true.
young.
He
23.
Yeah, no, I have heard of
Can
him.
I see a picture of this
He's
stranger?
he's another
Total
one.
stranger.
Like, who was the guy the other day we said where he looked like
Yeah.
the first video game character you get where you haven't unlocked any customization yet? He
Yeah.
was in the break on stage 6.
In our defense, I feel like we would be much better at this game if we were not 9 days into the Tour de France, where our brains are cooked.
I think I'd still get that wrong on stage one.
What,
I
what,
don't think I'd get him, but I probably could have named at least a couple French guys on Arkea.
what will happen
You
is
got
that
Wawa.
what will happen is
Yeah,
that
but I know Wawa's not that far back yet.
That's true.
I'm not ruling anything out for Wawa this tour.
As we go further into the tour, the names popping up will be much more familiar. So we'll only have a few tricky ones like this.
Did we both lose a point for that?
I'm not going to deduct. I think you both gave it a good go. There were some
Okay.
decent answers in there, but certainly no prizes.
No.
Looks
yeah,
like I'm going to Tokyo.
It's Paris. Olympics are in
Oh
Paris.
shit, yeah. Oh, maybe I'll go to Tokyo anyway.
Well, that was embarrassing. But is what it is. Is what it is.
We go again.
We go again.
Need the rest day, clearly.
We do need the rest day. We desperately need the rest day. On that point, though, we are doing a special rest day episode. We will be emailing out a special RSS link and like a play link if you are a member. If you are not a member, tough luck. No rest day podcast for you.
Last year we laid the foundations for the Rest Day podcast in the river of Carcassonne.
Yeah.
And you may think that the podcast so far this tour have been a bit loose, a bit shooting from the hip, but just wait until you get the off the major platforms of Apple and Spotify level of podcast we can get.
Just grossly defamatory bullshit.
It will be, yeah. If you these Q&As, you will be getting the truth, the unfiltered truth.
Unfiltered truth. So, if you want the unfiltered truth, you can send us your questions. You don't actually have to be a member to send questions, but
No,
but
we're going
you'll
to check.
never hear the
I'm
answer.
going to step all night cross-checking
Cross-checking. We are
names
gonna
of
check.
question submitters
better
and
be
membership
a member.
lists. Yeah.
Better be a member. So you can email me, editor@escapecollective.com. That's like the big public email, so I don't mind that. Email me if your question, or you can hit us on Discord. There's a special channel for questions. Go find it. Those are the two ways you can get us questions, and we already have a huge pile. We have enough for
We
a
might not
very
be able
long
to get
episode
to
tomorrow.
all of them, but
We
it means that we
probably
can
won't.
be choosy.
Yeah, we'll answer the ones that we know the answers to.
That's a good point as well.
And yeah, it'll be great. It'll be good fun. So if you're not already a member, head over to escapecollective.com/join. It is not too late. If you sign up when you listen to this pod, you will still get. I should clarify that we have essentially two tiers at Escape Collective. The $1 is a subscription that drops the paywall. It does get you the special podcast, drops the paywall, but no Discord access.
Can you comment or not?
You can comment.
Oh, you can comment. Okay. Just no Discord.
And then there's a sort of the premier tier, which is the sort of the original tier, which gets you Discord access and more access to the editors and lots of like special newsletters and things like that. So there's the two things. If you want the full thing,
Yeah.
gotta sign up for the full membership. If you don't, if you just want to drop the paywall and get the special podcast, then yeah, give us $1. We'll be happy
Don't
with
be
it.
afraid to try it out. You might like it.
You might like it. I think you will. We're like this all year.
We literally can't help ourselves.
All right, with that, let's get over to José Been, who is going to actually, we're going to get a bit from Tuesday's stage. She's looking ahead. Obviously, there's no. It's a rest day tomorrow, so she's not.
I didn't even know where we're going on Tuesday, so this will be
I
useful.
had no idea where we're going on Tuesday, but I'm going to read the text that Jose sent me, which is, today we look ahead to Tuesday. We visit, Volcania.
Oh, wow.
We visit the Volcania
I thought we missed our chance.
theme park, and Jose has a rather cheesy memory of local cheese. This is going to be good. I can't wait. All right, here's Jose.
Well, I hope the riders will be well rested and ready for stage number 10 of the Tour de France on Tuesday. Can you imagine we're almost halfway already? I certainly can't, because there's so much more to tell you about history and castles and cheese and geology. And geology is also one of the subjects today, because we start in Volcania, the amusement park with everything volcano. Or as the website tells me, Volcania Park is dedicated to the exploration and promotion of the Earth's natural history, geology and volcanism. The park offers a unique experience where visitors can learn about volcanic activity, earthquakes and other geological phenomena through interactive exhibits and educational displays. Yay, learning! Well, luckily there's also fun to be had, because it has attractions like the Dragon Ride, sacred volcanoes, and one called La Terre en Colère, which I would translate as pissed off Earth, but the French called it Angry Earth. A really missed opportunity, if you ask me. The peloton won't have time for frivolous attractions, because there is a pretty punchy stage awaiting them after the rest day. It will quite possibly be explosive. Excusez the word pun. The volcanoes are silent now, but there was volcanic activity until quite recently, namely 7,000 to 9,000 years ago. The type of volcanism we see here is similar to that in Iceland or that of the Etna in Italy. It was sometimes effusive, when lava fountains produced slow-flowing rivers of molten rock, but sometimes it was also explosive, with huge ash clouds that end up high in the atmosphere. A stratovolcano like Mont d'Or, where we have our intermediate sprint after 60 kilometers, is a cone-shaped volcano made up of ash, lava flows and pyroclastic deposits. Because this volcano is a bit older, 1 to 3 million years old, weathering and erosion processes have already rounded off the mountain, and it no longer looks as typical as a volcano as Mount Etna. At 87 kilometers from the finish in Issoire, we passed the town of Murol, and that's where I ate my very first Saint-Nectaire cheese, because it comes from the neighbouring village of Saint-Nectaire. It's one of the 44 French cheeses with an AOC, an appellation d'origine contrôlée, or as the European Union calls it, an AOP. It's a cheese with a protected origin. In the case of Saint-Nectaire, it means it can only be produced with milk from a specific herd of cows from the specific AOC area. And the cheese also needs to be produced in this area. It's a pretty old cheese, because the first time it was mentioned in the history books was in 1651. Marshal Henri de Saint-Nectaire brought the cheese to his boss, Louis XIV, also known as the Sun King. The king instantly loved the cheese. The man had good taste and often had new cheese brought to the Versailles Palace by either boat or donkey. My experience with Saint-Nectaire was also quite memorable. I ordered the regional dish of aligot in a restaurant. My expectations were that I would get a cheesy fondue kind of goodness with bread to dip in. But I got a plate with a pile of mashed potatoes with the cheese mixed in, with a sausage stuck in the mass like a flag mast. My husband can still laugh at the face of disappointment I had right there and then while he enjoyed a juicy steak frites.
That's right, boys. We are going to a theme park.
I'm so excited. When we arrived early at Puy de Dôme today, I was like, do we have time to go to Volcania?
I had to be like, Ian, probably not.
I was hoping it was just going to be a little bit shit. And
It's definitely going to be a little bit
we
shit.
will find out.
We are going to find out.
I couldn't be more excited.
We'll drop you there, Ian, and pick you up later, just like today with me up the mountain.
We are here until Wednesday,
We are.
which is amazing.
Also, should just point out quickly, we were kind of not disparaging, but slightly knocking Clement from before we arrived.
Yeah.
Because I had a sort of unassuming 2 days here, the Dauphiné in 2020. I must have been staying in a very different part of town because all around us and the place where the Airbnb we're staying at, frankly delightful.
It is lovely. We had Vietnamese for dinner,
Yep.
which
Yes.
is a nice change from
Yes.
steak and chips.
Margarita Canard.
It's lovely. The only knock I will have is, I think, the same knock that I had yesterday, which was the very sinister cathedral, which just
It's really scary.
it's a
It
scary looking cathedral.
Yeah.
Johnny described it as some Mordor shit as we were driving in, and it couldn't have been a more apt
It's like Le
description.
Sauron, isn't it? It's this happens. It's the same with the Barcelona one, the Sagrada Familia. That one is ominous as well. It's like,
Guys,
I can see why people were scared of like
The Lord.
of the Lord back in the day. It's terrifying.
the location for tomorrow's rest day cricket has been chosen.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like way out of town.
Let's just find a little lake to dip our toes in.
Yeah, that might be.
Yeah.
I mean, considering I don't even know how to play cricket or like how you win, I think that
Well,
that's
last year it was just one of the EF mechanics or soigneurs who just like stayed in batting because we couldn't get him out for like 40 minutes and eventually got like embarrassed and like stopped.
Just kept hitting the ball over the Total Energies bus
Yes.
into someone's garden.
The only good moment was the one moment of any sort of sporting prowess I've had where I managed to just leap up and take a catch and got congratulated by the EF sports director Charlie Wegelius.
that was exciting.
Which honestly, I think I go to bed thinking about that more nights than I don't.
Well, we'll see if we get up there or not. It's far.
The only reason to go is because there are more team staff going this year, including potentially Rod Ellingworth
Which
from
would
the
be
Innes
fun.
Grinders, which would be fun. I reckon he's either got a bit of spin in him, maybe a bit of off spin,
What does
or
that mean?
so you either bowl like normal with like pace, and it's about the pace and the swing of the ball, or
Yeah.
spin, which is
Curveball.
it's like the bounce of the surface. And
Or what I do, which is the worst of both worlds.
if Rod Ellingworth is taking on a less sort of, he maybe doesn't battle bowl, I would quite like to secure an umpire's outfit because he would look like an icon of umpire's pass. He's got the magnetism of an all-star umpire.
Yep. Well, we'll report back.
A quiet seniority.
Yeah. There you go. We'll report back on Tuesday whether we end up at the cricket or not. We now should head over to Abbey Mickey. Today was the final day of the Giro. Annemiek van Vleuten
You're joking. Another one.
won the Giro. It sets up a pretty fascinating duel, I think, between her and Demi Vollering for the Tour de France in a couple of weeks because Vollering was dominant all spring. Van Vleuten was dominant at this Giro. Vollering's not at this Giro. It's going to be good. All right, let's get over to Abby for the final run from the Giro.
Hannah Barnes, you ready? It's over. It's done. We made it.
We did. It's not been too bad though. I definitely preferred this side of the race to the racing side of it.
Especially because word from the ground is that this was a really, really fast Giro.
Yeah, its racing is pretty fast generally now, so I can believe that.
And I was chatting with Megan Jastrab of DSM Firmenich yesterday, and she said that yesterday doesn't count as a sprint because the climbs were actually really hard. And she would consider today the second sprint of the race. And that was the plan for DSM, was to try to hold it together for a sprint. It was also the plan of UAE team ADQ. And what an awesome win for Chiara Consoni. She also won, fun fact, she won the final stage of last year's Giro too.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
She just likes to wait until the end, just to leave on a high.
Yeah, it's because you go home, you're like, oh yeah, I won a stage of the Giro. But if you win stage one, you're like, did I?
That was so
Long time ago
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, she said after the race that she really didn't feel good for the whole thing. The team did a lot of work to keep her in the race just for this stage, and then did a lot of work today to deliver her to the line. And she dedicated the win to, unsurprisingly, Marta Bastianelli, who's, as we talked about yesterday, it's her final race today. Kind of a pretty crazy day that it's Bastianelli's last race, Annemiek's last ever Giro stage.
Wow, there are two big names in the peloton that have just done a lot of last days. So yeah, I was actually pretty happy to see Consoni won. Just even though it would have been really cool if Bastianelli won, but it's probably just not possible right now. So yeah, just to have a Italian UAE rider is pretty cool. And to be able to dedicate it to Bastianelli is really nice.
I think there's something pretty beautiful in the fact that that Consoni's an Italian and she's of this younger generation that's coming up now. And Bastianelli was still a massive part of the victory, like being the captain on the road for that team. So even though she didn't win, it's like passing the torch kind of to the next generation, helping Consoni get this win.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Italy have always had a huge depth of talent. Like they're always at Worlds, and their selection for Worlds is just so hard because they're all just so good. So to have like Consoni, I think it's the first year that she's at UAE, but she would have had Bastianelli just guiding her through those races and showing her the ropes. So yeah, it's cool that she was able to win on Bastianelli's last day in the peloton.
For Annemiek, she's just won her fourth ever Giro Donne, and she's going back to altitude, headed back to Livigno to prep for the Tour. Classic Annemiek. I think she maybe recovers at altitude.
I think it's like, for me, altitude is quite personal, and she's had years of figuring it out, and she clearly has worked out that altitude's good for her. So
she basically pioneered altitude training in the women's peloton.
It's taken off. It's unreal. Like teams are just doing altitude training camps.
I saw Demi this morning.
Oh yeah,
she rode right by my front door. I was like, "Hello, you're going the wrong way. This road ends."
Yeah, there's nowhere to go there. That's funny.
I almost was like, "Can I talk to you for the podcast?" No, just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah. So huge victory for Van Vleuten. She went into this race and there was a lot of questions about her form and how she was going to do. Given that the race didn't look too bad in the beginning, it was kind of like you picked Voss, I picked Elisa Lamborghini. It feels like so long ago now that Elisa crashed out of the race, and Antonia Niedermeyer, there was like some serious drama throughout the whole week. And yeah, now I don't know, now that we're looking back on it and Annemiek has her fourth Giro victory, it's crazy to think that before the Rio Olympics, she wasn't really a GC contender at all. That was only 7 years ago. Yeah, and in the last 7 Giros, she's won 4. She was in the pink jersey and crashed out in 2020. Broke her wrist, still came back and raced Worlds, and then finished third behind Anna van der Breggen and Elisa Lamborghini in 2017, the year after the Olympics, and didn't race in 2021 because of the Olympics. So pretty much since she set her sights on the pink jersey, she's been the rider of the race. The only rider that's ever been able to kind of challenge her for that is van der Breggen, but she won, in 2021 when Van Vleuten wasn't even there. So I think it's pretty crazy that in 2024, we're not going to have Van Vleuten lining up for the Giro.
Which is going to make the race it's going to make it exciting, I would say, because it's going to make it close racing again. So I'm looking forward to it. And the Giro, like it's kind of, a lot of people always threaten like it's not going to be a race next year, it's not professional, it shouldn't be a World Tour race, but it's always just like a big goal for a lot of riders. So I'm looking forward to next year. It's going to be good.
All right. Well, Hannah, it's been amazing having you on this week. I wonder if we can wrangle you for some Tour de France dailies as well, because that'd be pretty cool.
I'd say so. I can actually watch all of them, all of the stages probably, so I have a bit of a better idea what's going on. But yeah.
It's a big deal, the tour. Thanks everyone for listening. It's been amazing doing these. And I mean, the biggest thanks ever to our audio diarists. It's really hard to keep track of racing all day and then having to send an audio diary to me. And I'm just insanely grateful to the people that signed up for that. And we have some really exciting names lined up for the tour as well. Ashley Moolman-Passio, Jess Allen. We've got a really great mix of people for the tour. So if you liked these Giro dailies, don't worry. They're going to be back and better than ever at the Tour de France Femme, and I'll be on the ground, which will be wild. Hannah, this has been great.
That's it from us. Pretty tired.
What high energy, Kaylee.
You've crashed now.
I just crashed.
I've got such a long list of things
just
to do.
now. Yeah. I mean, I got to go write a Mike Woods piece, and
At least
Mike
that
Woods
Airbnb
deserves a piece written about him.
The only other thing we should mention from today is we arrived and we had some very friendly Airbnb hosts.
They were great.
Who were quite concerned because when we got in, there was like a buzzing noise. And they were frantically running around checking appliances like, what is this buzzing noise? What is this buzzing noise? And it was like really bugging them. We get back downstairs and Kaylee sort of picks up his bag and is like, it's in my bag. Luckily, it was his razor.
It was funny. And our hosts are great. And our Airbnb is great. And Clement Ferrand is fantastic. And Johnny has to take back all of his negative reviews previously.
Yeah, everything I review negatively turns out to be all right. Perth, Clement Ferrand.
Yep.
What next?
Lovely.
Cav.
All right. We will be back if you are a member tomorrow.
Yeah.
I genuinely cannot wait for this
Get
episode.
involved. I'm
It's going to
looking
be
forward to it,
super
yeah.
fun. And then we'll be back with a normal episode on Tuesday from stage 10.
Yeah. Volcania.
Which starts in Volcania and ends somewhere.
I hope they have good t-shirts.
That better. I'm buying merch.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.